Now and forever, we bring IT to life.
Welcome everyone to this BMC webinar, and I want to welcome our special guest, Dirk Anderson. He's a BMC principal consultant, and he will take us through the foundation of every digital company. Dirk?
Thanks, I appreciate it. So today we actually have a webinar based on the foundation of every digital company, and we're actually going to do a few things in today's webinar. We have an agenda where we're going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that our IT service management organizations face in their day-to-day duties. We're going to talk about how a good foundation and using automated discovery can provide actionable data center intelligence for your organization. We're also going to talk about the advantages of our automated discovery tool, which is called Bmc Atrium Discovery and Dependency Mapping. And we're also going to perform a demo. It's not actually on the agenda slide here, but we do intend to cover the actual product as well. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and move forward. So some of the ITSM challenges that a lot of our customers face today are mainly meeting the mean time to repair goals, not meeting their SLAs, relying on tribal knowledge and changing risk and slow change cycles. So these are just some of the major challenges that people in IT face with their day-to-day duties. And what we try to do with ADDM is understand how we can get a foundation of data to help us get better at providing a better time to repair things and making sure we're meeting our goals and being able to have data at our fingertips and getting that data back into the hands of the right people at the right time. And so that's what our foundation automated discovery tool does for us, is it gets all that data for us. So just some market insight for us here. These are some metrics that Gartner actually provided for us on the left-hand side here. And then on the right-hand side, these are some metrics that were done by Forrester Research. And Gartner tells us throughout 2015, 80% of outages that are going to impact a mission-critical service is likely to be caused by either people and or process issues, and that 50% of those outages are actually changed by or caused by change in configuration, integration, and handoff issues. So what they're saying is it's really almost human intervention that's causing a lot of these outages and giving us this black eye when it comes to understanding how we can maintain our organizations. Also, 40% of critical service issue take more than 2 hours to resolve. And what that means is the average cost of a service outage to your business is approximately about $100 to $500K an hour. So if you have more than a couple service issues in a day, the math just adds up and adds up and adds up, and before we know it, we're wasting all our money trying to troubleshoot service issues. And so with that being said, when we look at the staff and the people and the resources needed to help us resolve these service issues and incidents, those people are spending at least 2 days a week of their time trying to resolve these incidents because they don't have a good foundation data and they don't have insight into that data. So they're spending a lot of time trying to track down where the actual issues are occurring. Also, 29% of tickets that get generated are actually generated from some type of event happening within the organization. This is in North America, and across the globe, from global respondents, it's about 18%. But this really does reflect a very low alignment between the service desk and operations management. So being able to provide a foundation of data for organization to use to help them troubleshoot issues, to help them work through outages and things like that is something that we need to work towards. And so when we look at the way Gartner prescribes that we mitigate costs and decrease risk and things, they have a prescribed approach. And Gartner has what's called this ITSM maturity model. And what they're saying in this model is as IT organizations progress from level to level up the maturity curve, each step will yield different types of incremental savings, resulting in the things you see in the right there, which are lower cost, decreased risk, and increased business alignment. The greatest value, of course, gets realized in the centralized view, which is highlighted in the bluish color there. And this illustrates a true total cost of ownership of the assets and things that you discover within your organization and how it adds value to the enterprise. So most corporations or organizations today are down in the 1 and 2 levels, where they're aware of things within their environment, but that's not necessarily an automated process. That is data that they might have in a spreadsheet, or somebody just has tribal knowledge of things existing out there in the environment. And that there are also minimal processes and tools in place, and that they tend to rely on those spreadsheets, and they're aware of this and they're committed to improve its service management program, but they haven't breached the gap yet. They haven't made that step up to level 3 and 4 where they're becoming more proactive and more service aligned. So when you can implement an automated discovery tool, you actually can move yourself up this maturity curve. And Gartner also tells us that in 2012, approximately 35% of the companies out there were at a proactive level. So that's a very low number. So hopefully most of that 35% are using some type of automated discovery tool. But on the flip side of that, only 5 to 8% of those companies were at the service aligned level. And what we mean by service aligned is being able to discover your infrastructure, dependencies, and relationships and relate those to a business service that's being provided as a service to your business. So that's an extremely low number as well. And then at the highest level, Gartner estimated that there were less than 3% of companies out there that are solidly at a business partner level. And what they mean by that is being able to provide the data that the business needs to operate on. So it's a journey, and it's something that we need to try to look at and try to get to at some point. And just using automated things to help us get there is the action here. And so when we talk about the data that we have in our data centers and what we can do with that data, we want to talk about how we can do actions against that data and how we can provide intelligence regarding that data. So actionable data center intelligence is being able to understand what assets you have, how they're connected, where they're actually located, and how they're being used. And so when we talk about how we can actually discover that information, we want to be able to automate. The big thing here is being able to automate this type of process. Today, manual data collection methods just can't keep pace with the complexity of what's out there in these dynamic IT environments. Once you put data into a spreadsheet and try to load that into a tool and use that data, it's usually out of date the next day or within the next hour because things are so dynamic and changing that it's just almost impossible to try to maintain that data via a spreadsheet. So one of the ways that we combat that is to implement an automated discovery solution. An automated discovery solution that can go out and take a snapshot of assets within our IT environments and within our data centers, and all of the assets in the data center. That includes hardware, network storage, cloud, and just everything out there that would exist within your data center. And then taking that data and being able to build out application maps that show dependencies and relationships between that data. So Bmc Atrium Discovery and Dependency Mapping provides the most comprehensive auto-discovery tool out there for your data center, which will allow you to take the data and transform that data into actionable information. So asset service and operations management can trust that data and use that data to help them in their daily needs. So each step in the journey from being proactive to more service aligned, from data information to knowledge, results in, of course, optimizing your costs, decreasing your business risks, and then also increasing your business alignment and IT operations and asset management agility. And this slide here is kind of showing us as we move through on the bottom, being able to discover the data, the inventory, and the configurations and their relationships, we start to be more proactive. As we get into the middle stage where we're building these application maps and we're providing that in a business context and service models to our business, we become more service aligned. And while we're doing this and we're moving along this journey, that's just helping us to further solidify being able to optimize the costs and decrease risk and things to the sort. So the idea here is to start small and gather data and take data and provide it to the business so the business can perform actions and be intelligent on how they're doing things with that data. So assigning tickets becomes more efficient because the service desk can inform the right IT support staff. Your change advisory board meetings are more efficient because you can do impact analysis against the different types of applications and different types of data that you have out there in your organization. You have a faster and lower cost to perform change audits because you know exactly what's going to happen by being able to understand what different items relate to other items within an application or within a business service. You're also able to identify changes that were implemented outside of your change management process and also validate that approved changes were actually implemented correctly. And being able to just take this information and get rid of relying on your server admins or relying on somebody that's maintaining a spreadsheet somewhere so that we can eliminate the dependence on the tribal knowledge and move to restore services faster and get better at mean time to repair. And also being able to, of course, accelerate change cycles to support our business requirements. And as we move from being proactive to more service aligned, our ITSM maturity becomes better, and everything just gets better from a holistic perspective, and we're able to get to being able to really pinpoint things within our environment. So some of the metrics here that we have using ADDM. Customers that use Atrium Discovery and Dependency Mapping and take that data and put it into a CMDB and then allow that data within the CMDB to be consumed by other types of ITOM and ITSM processes do definitely have cost savings and time savings and resource savings, not only with incident and change management processes, but also with things like configuration drift management. And so when we look at some of these metrics, we have customers out there today, and one of the world's leading providers of IT consulting services and outsourcing services, which is operated in 40 countries throughout the world, actually saved per year about $230 million using Atrium Discovery and Dependency Mapping to replace their manual process for software auditing. This particular company's 2014 revenue was over $11.5 billion. And just to follow that up, we also have a European supplier of electrical, natural gas, wind, and solar energy reducing their Oracle license expense renewal through a better understanding of their Oracle licensing positions using our automated discovery solution. They also automated a previously manual software audit process, and that helped them reduce their audit prep time from 90 to 30 days. When you implement an automated discovery tool, you can also realize reduction in mean time to repair. One of the largest banking groups in Israel, with locations across the U.S. and the U.K., Mexico, and China, use ADDM for data center discovery and application mapping. And with that data, they push into their Atrium CMDB, which holds all their critical business service models, and then they use those service models to integrate with their monitoring solution so that when they have events on their monitoring solution, they're able to do impact assessments, how things are linked to the business services within their organization. So with that type of information, their IT department can detect problems before end users are even affected, and they become more proactive at doing these types of things. One of the big things here I also want to point out is that using an automated discovery solution, you can reduce the time and effort it takes to actually map out an application. And this metric has been validated by several of our ADDM customers that use it for application mapping. And those application maps vary from customer to customer. Some customers have over 200 different applications that they've mapped out using the tool. And we also have some customers that are, in the, believe it or not, in the thousands of applications that they are mapping with this tool. And just being able to automate that process is helping them save costs and bring a reduced effort to mapping those applications. So the tool is extremely valuable in providing different types of ways to help us do things within our organization. But some of the advantages of Atrium Discovery and Dependency Mapping are that this has been out in the marketplace for over 10 years, discovering data centers. One of the biggest things about Atrium Discovery and Dependency Mapping is that the ROI is extremely quick. It's very fast time to value. So realizing ROI from this particular tool comes very quickly. It's delivered as a virtual appliance. And what we mean by that is everything that you need to do discovery, your web server, your application server, your reporting engine, all of that type of stuff is actually built into an appliance model so that you can actually download this appliance, stand it up within your virtual infrastructure, and you're ready to go start discovering. So there's no time wasted on implementing a installation and configuration on physical hardware because it is delivered as an appliance and it comes in a virtual stack. It is an agentless discovery tool, meaning that we do not have to deploy an agent to an endpoint to go discover something against that endpoint. And the way we do that is through a technology called patterns. And the way patterns work are they would use a common set of protocols and a common set of credentials within your organization to log into an endpoint and interrogate that endpoint and to extract data from that endpoint and then bring it back and parse that data into usable information within the user interface within ADDM so that then you can start looking at that data and drilling down into that data. So the ROI is unmatched when we talk about ADDM because of these three things. Also, the pattern library that we provide for ADDM gets updated monthly. So if you implement this product within your organization, every month you reap benefit of our development team giving you enhanced patterns and new patterns to go increase the breadth and scope of coverage of what we can discover out of your data center. So that's extremely valuable to know that every month you're getting an update to a product that's going to make you better and better at what you're doing to optimize your costs and reduce risk. Big discovery. We can cluster this tool and we can also scale it. So what we mean by that is that because it is a virtual appliance, we can stand up these virtual appliances within segmented portions of your network, such as within a DMZ or maybe behind a firewall, and then actually take all those individual scanners within those individual data centers and push them out to a consolidation appliance. So not only can we penetrate certain areas that might not be discoverable, we can also architect the solution to become faster at scanning at those data centers and then push that data out to a consolidator where then we can see a view of all that aggregated data that we're doing and scanning. So big discovery is a big topic here because the faster that you can scan your IT organization's data centers, then the better you're going to be at being able to do root cause analysis and triage and make sure you resolve incidents quickly and provide that data that your operations folks need. It's very easy to tailor discovery to your organization. This is a completely extensible product. And so remember the pattern technology we mentioned here just a minute ago? That pattern technology can be extended by you within your organization to go discover things that we might not have an out-of-the-box pattern for. So you can use templates within the product, or you can take an existing pattern and you can extend that pattern. So it's very easy to get to things in your data center, not only from our breadth and scope of coverage of the patterns that we publish, but also being able to take patterns and enhance those or take templates and point them directly at something that might not be an out-of-the-box thing. So being able to get those monthly updates, being able to extend this product within your organization brings a ton of value to the table as well. We have a very low total cost of ownership, or TCO, for ADDM. You can scan your schedule frequencies. You can put those on the schedule. You can ad hoc scans, or you can schedule how you're scanning your environment. But being able to not only provide the clustering for redundancy of that data, but being able to back up that data and make sure that everything is current, and being able to increase the scheduling and being able to increase that scan frequency allows you to kind of set things up and then kind of step back, let it go gather its data, and then once you have that data, understand how to use that data. So setting it up and being able to scan your data centers and that whole process literally is just a couple of days. So the total cost of ownership of maintaining it is not, it's something that we tend to say, when I look at total cost of ownership, I'm talking about an administrator that has to administrate the product. I'm talking about the people that have to consume the data and the resources needed to manage that data. With ADDM, because of the fact we deliver it as a virtual appliance and the fact that we can scan your organization and your data centers extremely quickly, that total cost of ownership tends to get lower and lower as we move further down the maturity curve. So with that being said, application mapping is one of the strong suits of ADDM. There are a lot of customers today. We have over 900 different customers that use ADDM in production. And out of those 900, yes, they love the fact that we can get standard inventory information off of an endpoint agentlessly, but the big thing that they really love is the application mapping, because this brings advanced context to the business. So being able to understand through a reasoning engine how things are connected and how they're related and the different dependencies between that application is something that is just going to accelerate your organization and being able to lower your costs globally. And the way that we do application mapping is that we can map OEM off-the-shelf applications, but we can also map custom applications within your organization. The way that we actually map those custom applications is through a feature called collaborative application mapping. And what collaborative application mapping does for us is it accelerates the process of being able to actually map out applications. And so we are able in the tool to take discovered data, build an application map from that data, generate a PDF report, and email that report over to your application owners, who then collaboratively work with the discovery people to say, hey, wow, that's great, but you know what, I think we need to add one thing here or there. So that collaborative process of you providing the data to the application owner allows you to become even more faster and aligned to what the apps are doing, and you get better at actually mapping out those applications because the application owners are more receptive to you actually giving them 85% of their application where they don't have to sit in a war room with you and describe everything and have you try to map that out manually. We also provide a very powerful search and analytical tool within ADDM. We provide about 60 different out-of-the-box dashboards and over 200 out-of-the-box reports for you to be able to slice and dice the data that we discover and to visualize those application maps within the tool. So just from a standpoint of being able to click one or two clicks and get exactly to the data you need, or being able to type a search word such as Red Hat or Oracle into the search box and then get presented with all the different instances of that, we are able to bridge the gap between what we discover and how we present that data and how that data is usable and consumable. Transparency. So being able to view the source of discovery data in the UI. So when we talk about these patterns and when they go and interrogate an endpoint, we parse the output of the queries we're issuing against that endpoint, and then we put that data into our user interface so that when you go to view the source of that discovery data, you have all the attributes of that data associated with it as well. So being able to view the sources and drill down on the sources and understand certain attributes of that data, we're fully transparent when we do that. It's the pattern technology that brings that transparency forward for us. And what all of this does, all of these things do for us together, is just give us more data center insight into not only software, but the different types of software we have out there, the end of support dates on that software, and also vendor-specific things for power consumption, and also for just understanding usage of. So if you're looking to consolidate a data center or become a little bit more green and not leave such a big carbon footprint, we also can pull vendor specifications for hardware power consumption. So all of these things together are advantages that we provide with ADDM to give you the things you need to become more efficient at your processes in ITSM and also ITOM and operations management. So today, the current version of Atrium Discovery and Dependency Mapping is version 10.2. 10.2 is the most complete storage discovery solution out there, and it discovers modern hardware storage infrastructures and also racks, and it seamlessly leverages our CMDB discovery tool, has an automatic native out-of-the-box integration with the CMDB so that every time you scan your IT estate, any changes will be reflected in your CMDB seamlessly and at the time that you're scanning your infrastructure. So if an attribute changes on an endpoint or a piece of software changes or you patch something, you will actually see that seamlessly update in your CMDB through our native out-of-the-box integration. So Atrium Discovery and Dependency Mapping version 10.2 is the current GA release, and it brings a lot of things to the table for discovering load balancers and load balancer infrastructure, network attached storage and storage arrays, along with all of the previous capabilities of all the previous versions of the product. One of the big things in 10.2 that we also bring to the table is now being able to discover racks and management controllers within racks. So if I go into a data center and I see a rack and it's got 40 blade servers in that rack, I can now discover the specific capabilities of the rack itself, the management controller in the rack, and then every piece of hardware that sits in that rack. So that in itself allows us to become a lot more efficient at discovering exactly what's in that data center, not just from a standalone server perspective, but also from a rack perspective. And these also will include, most of your major manufacturers like Dell and Cisco and all the other rack vendors out there. And then we also have the ability, because we're seamlessly integrating and pushing this data to the CMDB, that anytime anything changes in the rack, let's say you pull a blade out of a rack or you add capacity to one of those blades in the rack, we're going to pick up that change and we're going to automatically update that change in our CMDB. Also, I'd like to point out that ADDM, because it's been around for such a long time, we actually have a very active online community. We have a pattern exchange out there. You have direct access to our developers. You have direct access to our pre-release schedules for the next release of the product as it comes out. We also have information and being able to sign up for beta programs. You have the ability to connect with webinars like we're doing today. And then also integrate and talk to our product management team. So if you have an idea that you'd like to see in our discovery product, you can actually converse with these guys out on the community. This community can be accessed, of course, off of bmc.com, and if you scroll down to the bottom of the web page, there's a link there for communities. When you get to the community's actual landing page, you want to go into the Discovery ADDM portion of it, and within there you can interact with all the other different customers that have it in production, and also our team here at BMC that can provide things to you as well. So I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the exciting stuff here and actually get to see ADDM in action. So for those of you who are not familiar with our automated discovery and dependency mapping tool, what you're seeing here is ADDM, Atrium Discovery and Dependency Mapping user interface. So when a user logs into the actual interface, the first thing that they're presented with is a dashboard. One of the coolest things about this product, and we talked about this earlier, is that we provide about 60 different types of dashboards and also reporting to go behind those dashboards. So what you're looking at here is the ability to, depending on what type of IT initiative it is that you are embarking on, get a dashboard with relevant information behind that dashboard. So if I was embarking on a migration of operating systems, here recently, Windows discontinued, I believe, Server 2003, and so they were discontinuing support for that operating system, and so a lot of people actually had an initiative to migrate off of those operating systems. Well, our operating system's dashboard would give us linkage into the information for all of the different types of operating systems that we have out there in our environment. Not only that, but it will give us graphs on the top left quadrant here, as you can see on our Windows operating systems. This particular graph gives us a graph over a time slice as well. So understanding the influx and outflux of different types of operating systems within your organization over a time period. Not only that, but understanding the different flavors of operating systems that you might have out there in your organization, whether it might be Unix or Linux or Windows or some really strange offbeat operating system. We have the ability to look at those, and then all of these graphs within these dashboards are actionable data. And what I mean by that is that you can drill down into these sections of these graphs and further get detailed information about those operating systems. So when I click on a section within that pie chart, it brings back all 43 instances of that particular Unix Solaris operating system. And then I have the ability to actually sort on versioning. So if I was only interested in version 9 or version 10 or version 11, I could go directly to that particular version. And then it will actually redraw the screen here and give me just those two. And at this point, I'm able to actually drill into and get the specific inventory information on that particular host that's running that operating system. And here you can see that we provide the support details for the actual operating system. As you can see here, this particular operating system went out of extended support 8 months ago. So this particular operating system is definitely a candidate for consolidation. But without having an automated discovery tool that can tell us the specifics of the operating system, then we would never have the visibility into the support details to understand where we are, not only with being able to support that operating system, but where we are within the actual organization and meeting our compliancy against what should be within our organization. So we also bring down the patches that are installed on that operating system, the package count, also information about if it is a virtualized infrastructure and it's a virtual machine running that operating system. We'll pull the actual serial number of the virtual machine and then also characteristics of the resources assigned to it. So as you can see, these dashboards that we provide for you get you to relevant data extremely quickly. The other day, our admins were told that Oracle was coming in to audit us against our Oracle databases. So what they did is they logged into the ADDM interface and they went directly to the software products Oracle dashboard. At that point, in a single view from a single click, we're able to see all of the different instances of Oracle that were out there discovered within all of our data centers. At this point, it was very easy for me and for the administrator to actually go to any portion of this graph and drill into the specifics of that version of that release. And when we do that, of course, we have the ability to further drill into the specifics around that particular release of Oracle operating system or database. And then this actually is an Oracle database, and its version was 10.2. It was release 2 of 10G. It's an enterprise edition, and it was running on this host. And these are the actual database details that were pulled from that database. It is an Oracle database called DiscoDB, and this is the actual version of the host it's running on. And the big thing here, again, is the software support details. This particular version of Oracle went out of support 2 years ago. So this is also another great candidate for consolidation. But being able to use the dashboards to your advantage to get to that data extremely quickly and being able to understand the data behind the dashboard is something that ADDM does extremely well. On the flip side of that, if you'll remember, we talked about a very powerful search engine. So up here on the top right, we have a search engine. So let's say I didn't even really understand how to navigate this interface. I could just type something in like Red Hat and say, hey, go out there and search for Red Hat for me because I really don't understand where that data is or where it resides. Just go search for it for me and tell me information about Red Hat. So when we actually perform that search, what's happening is it's taking those keywords and going against all of our discovered data, and it's going to pull back anything that matches that keyword search. And so when I do that, I can see, oh, there's a ton of data out here. there's packages, there's processes, there's virtual machines, there's hosts. Oh, but there's also software instances. So if I want to understand the number of actual pieces of software that match Red Hat environment, I can actually just click on that software instance link, and it's going to pull back all 167 instances of Red Hat. From here, I can filter on this data and also run reports against this data. So if I wanted to, I could say, hey, I just want to filter on, Red Hat 5.5. Just show me product version of Red Hat 5.5. And when I filter on the data, again, it pulls back just those versions of Red Hat, and then it's very easy for me to drill down into the data. So a couple of things to mention here. The fact that we can search against any of our discovered data allows us also to perform queries against that data. So what that does for us is it actually gives us the ability to search for vulnerabilities on our systems. So here recently, I forget the name of the last vulnerability that was out there, but shell shock and aftershock and heartbleed and a few other vulnerabilities surfaced about a year and a half ago. So we have the ability in our search capability to create what's called a query against data. And if I wanted to, I could say, hey, I want to actually set up a query that's going to search all my data for something called shell shock or something similar. And I could actually just type that in and say, hey, go search for that. Or I could just actually take that word shell shock and also put it up here in my search bar and just search for that and see if that's actually found on any of our servers. Now, that shell shock might not actually be the name of the executable, but what you can do is you could plug in shellshock.exe or whatever the actual vulnerability process name was, and then search for that vulnerability across all of your infrastructure out there. And you'll notice that when we click on our infrastructure tab, this is all of the data center infrastructure. This includes everything from clusters to containers to your network devices to network attached printers to your network attached storage systems, management controllers, load balancers, mainframes, all of that data that you want to discover within your data center, we are able to query against all of that data. You will also notice that whenever we go into a particular dashboard within the tool, there are an associated set of reports here that you can run. So we give you these 200 plus out-of-the-box reports for you to be able to run reports without having to do that yourself. We also allow you to build your own reports and build your own dashboards, but out of the box, we're covering about 90% of what you could do as far as reporting and dashboards are concerned. So being able just to come up with operating systems and say, run a report on the classification of operating systems in my data center. I can see here we have over 200 different versions of Windows out there, 165 of Unix, and some other flavors. So other is very interesting because ADDM will also go out and discover hosts that might have antiquated operating systems on them. And even though we classify them as other, ADDM will at least attempt to establish what we think that operating system is and what's being pulled back from that particular endpoint. So we will try to establish what we think it is and then create what's called a host profile. And the host profile is a PDF report that you would be able to then email over to your server admins and say, hey, our discovery tool found some different types of endpoints out there, but we're not really sure what this operating system is, so I'm going to send you a report, and I want you to look at this report, and I want you to look at all the specifics, and then tell me if you can figure out what you think it is. And this is really valuable because being able to get this information in a PDF that you can just ship off to someone in your organization and have them go validate things is extremely valuable as well too. But our out-of-the-box reports bring forward a way for you to get a handle on your data from a reporting perspective. So if somebody calls you and says, hey, I need to understand from a software inventory summary, what do we have out there? You can go to your reports tab and you can easily click on that particular report and get that data within just one or two clicks. So being able to say, hey, I want to see that summary across all the different types of, let's say, Apache Tomcat application servers that I have out there, I can choose that one, and I can run that report and get a summary of all of the Apache Tomcat application servers I have in my environment. So the completeness of the data is one thing, but then being able to present that data in consumable fashion is another thing. And that's what ADDM does extremely well, is it will allow you to get to that data efficiently and then present that data to you in a consumable format. Not only consumable for the ADDM administrator, but consumable by the people within your organization in operations and or in your application and business modeling development team as well. So when we talk about being able to do application mapping, one of the things that application mapping does for us is it pulls connection information from network devices and how they're connected to the hosts that have pieces of software running on them, and then how all those funnel up to the application itself. So when we talk about an application map, we're talking about an application map that includes all components of that application. The actual network connectivity components, switches, hubs, or routers that provide connection to those hosts, clusters of hosts, the different types of software that are running on those clusters or those individual nodes of those clusters, and then also the individual hosts and instances of software. And then being able to understand all these dependencies and relationships between them so that then I can then publish this data out to my operations folks so that they can consume that data. So the ability to take and look at an application from the standpoint of a piece of network attached storage and understanding how those pieces of storage relate to a host that's part of an application. And then on the flip side of that, load balancers, that front-end applications, how the service pools and the members of those service pools are connected through those load balancers into the application, and which portions of those load balancer pools and services are serving the connection to the members of those service pools. So being able to understand, if I hit a load balancer that's in front of an application, how does that traffic route down to the host and the software instances behind those load balancers? And then when I go all the way down to the very bottom down here, understanding the actual disk volume of a disk array that's actually attached to the network directly or attached through a management controller, and how those reflect through the application. So when we talk about the actual network storage piece, this becomes extremely important, because if you are storing portions of your application on a disk volume that's managed by a management controller, such as like, an EMC or similar, or Hitachi, a big vendor that does storage, that information that sits on that disk volume, if you can't understand what's on that disk volume from a capacity standpoint, then you're never going to know how the application was affected when the capacity of that disk gets filled up. So when we talk about being able to tie storage to an application, that's an automatic thing within ADDM. So when we build an application map and we find a host or a cluster that is actually managing network attached storage, it actually attaches that information automatically to the application map, because that information comes from the discovery of the inventory data. So you don't actually have to go out and do that. That's inherent in the solution. So when you build an application map itself, as long as there's a host providing a connection to something, or there's a load balancer providing a front-end route to a host, all of that information will get connected automatically, because that's done through the pattern discovery when we go discover the data center. So that in itself, being able to understand everything in that application, from the load balancer to a piece of network attached storage and everything in between, is where you get value. And being able to take that value and push it to a CMDB and have that data consumed by your organization, or even having that data consumed directly within ADDM, becomes extremely valuable, because now you are pinpointing exactly where you need to be, and you're understanding specifics about those actual pieces within that application. So extremely usable information here, and extremely easy to consume data too, because now you have this representation of data within the tool. And so I just want to touch on, we talked about the scope of what ADDM can do. So today, out of the box, there's approximately, I think we've published over 48,000 different patterns to discover everything from applications to middleware to databases to virtualization technologies to network and storage and rack units, and just the scope of what we cover with our automated discovery tool is unmatched in the industry. And every month you get that update of those TKUs that give you enhanced discovery capabilities. So as you move forward month to month, you're just pulling in more and more breadth of coverage. And I do want to touch on one last thing here. I know we're running short on time, but remember we talked about ROI with this product. Return on investment can be seen within days, weeks, and months with this product. So within the first day, as long as we have the correct credentials and the correct IP ranges that we want to scan or subnets that we want to scan, and we understand that there are no access control lists blocking our access to the endpoints, we can cover anywhere from about 30 to 45% of your data center discovery in one day. And that includes IP addressing of devices, being able to get partial default hardware and software reports, host visualization, software instance counts, network connections, databases, data dashboards, utilization and distribution dashboards, host count, all that kind of stuff in one day. In about a week, we can get anywhere from about 65 to 85% of your data center, and that includes also adding in all of the other things that are out in the data center, such as the network attached printers and the clustering and all the other things that are out there. And then within about a month, you're actually able to get almost pretty close to 100% of completely mapping out not only everything from an inventory perspective, but also from an application mapping perspective. Within a month, we've seen customers build out in the numbers of 25 to 100 different application maps from that data within about a month of using Atrium Discovery and Dependency Mapping. And all of this relates back to total cost of ownership and being able to maintain this moving forward. So once you've actually built an application map and you generate the pattern for that application map within ADDM, ADDM will pick up any dynamic changes within that application. So you now have insight into drift within an application perspective, as well as drift within the actual individual components of that application. So being able to stand this up, get it into your data centers, run your discovery, and get value out of the product is something that is unmatched, because one, we deliver it as a virtual appliance, and two, the data that you receive and the data that you get back from the reports and the visualizations give you everything you need to really become efficient in managing your data centers. So the inherent value of those TKU updates get included with this as well. So you get more and more breadth and coverage as you move forward with the product. So we're right up against our time mark here. I truly do appreciate everybody coming online to the webinar today.
Great. Thank you, Dirk, for taking us through this information. And this does conclude our webinar today. And this will be available shortly on the BMC communities to rewatch it. Thanks again for attending. Have a good day.
Now and forever, we bring IT to life.